Okay. All one person in right now, and that's me. All right, so I see you in on the chat. Dr. A's in on the chat. Southern was here. That's good. All right, welcome, Dr. A. Bringing you up. Now, Dr. A, I finally get it right, and I bring in your congressional profile, and you come in on this one. Is it because it's different setups? And you might have lost me in the transfer. So, Dr. A, did you come? I finally get it right and put in the message for the space, your congressional profile, and you come in on this one. Is that because of the phone differences?
Yeah, they're on two different phones. I can go get the other one.
No. It's completely up to you. So, all right, welcome, Mr. Pierre. So, anyway, so I looked up the definition of low IQ people, and so IQ people from 50 to 70 points are called morons. From 25 to 50 points, they're called imbeciles. And from 25 and below, they're called idiots, also known as Democrats. So anyway, I'm just saying.
I need you to put this into the notes so I can post that.
Okay. All right. I can do that. So, and those are clinical terms, by the way, just in case you didn't know, Dr. A. So what did you think of that? All right, Southern, bringing you up as a co-host. All right, welcome, everyone. We are going to get started in just a few. So, all right. And hey, Nick, on the bottom, I've got a link. If you could just throw that up some point. It's a link to Data Republican. She is a national treasure. So, all right. I will put that at the bottom of Rant. Okay, Nick. They're there at the bottom of the Rant. All right, welcome, Southern. How do you hear me?
I hear you good. You're a little low this morning.
A little low. Okay, we'll crank it up a bit. So that may be an issue with the mic. And how do you hear me now?
It's better.
Okay, good. We're fine-tuning it, getting it right. So now I can't remember. Southern, do you have a pooch, a canine in your home?
I have two of them.
Ah, and what are their names?
Rocky and Molly.
Rocky and Molly?
I did not name Molly. Little man named Molly.
All right. Well, that's a very strange name for a kid to name Molly. Why Molly?
I think he was 2 when we got her, or 1. And he just looked at her and that's what he called her. So that became her name.
Okay.
I find that hysterical, Larry, because my kids called our dog Polly when we got her when they were little too.
Huh. So our dog, our family dog, when my 2 oldest ones were little, was called Luna because they liked the color and it reminded them of Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter. So anyway, little golden, a Labrador, a white-haired Labrador. So the current one's name is Bowie. So what about you, Dr. A? What are your dogs' names?
Teddy and Luna.
Good name,
Teddy
Luna.
was called Bear at the rescue, and that did not fit his size, his personality, and I had a full-size golden nephew dog named Bear, so we called him Teddy Bear. We just call him Teddy.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, Bowie, he came from a shelter in Bowie, and I don't know, I think that name fits him. So definitely a good dog.
It's cute because we rescued a cat from Kauai, and it came from Kipu Farms, and we called her Kipu for all of her life.
So the only time one of my exes had a cat, and I actually named the cat because it was a gray cat, so I called it Nimbus, because a nimbus cloud is a gray rain cloud, and so that name stuck. But that was about it. Alrighty, we are about 9 minutes from getting started. So Southern, I know the little man's baseball season is over. So what's next? Are we at the beach yet?
No, we've been relaxing at home. Gas prices are a little high to be adventuring everywhere, so we'll probably be staying home this summer.
So this past weekend, I went up to my wife's son's graduation, and it was in Ohio, and it's, I'm very rarely north of the Mason-Dixon line for whatever reason. So there was a cemetery next to the bed and breakfast that we're staying at, which was an old church, which was quite nice. And, they had GAR, and I couldn't remember for just a few seconds what GAR stood for on some of the old tombstones, but it was Grand Army of the Republic. So they had Civil War veterans there in that cemetery, and there were definitely some old stones. And I would say probably out of the 100 or so graves in that cemetery, about 15 to 20 of them were actually veterans. So it was neat to go and walk and look at that. But they did something, and again, he is a good kid. He's training to be a pilot. He's getting a degree in engineering and aviation. But they let him walk across the stage with 3 classes to go. And I really had problems with that. Now, I didn't say that, obviously. I kept that to myself. But my issue is with the university, not him. You had to be complete, like actually done at the Air Force Academy to get to graduate. Other than that, they didn't let you graduate. Now, Dr. A, what about you? Same situation?
Same. Even at the universities, if you had, I don't know, it was like if you still had to turn something in for a class, but the teacher, basically told them that you were good, you were going to finish it. Sometimes they'd let you, but other than that, like I mentioned to you, you'd either have to wait and graduate in the fall when they don't really have a ceremony, or wait till the following year.
Yeah, I asked him, and he said it's kind of, they just let you walk just about whenever. And I was like, well, what's, the point of the family get together and celebrating something is to celebrate completion of something. And if it's not complete, what are we really doing? Now, in his defense, he'll finish it later this fall, and it's 3 aviation classes or aviation ratings that he needs to finish. And the airplanes have been down, so he couldn't have finished. But still, I just don't like the idea of celebrating something when you haven't actually done it, if that makes sense. So, Southern, what about you? What's going on down in Florida in regards to that?
When I graduated, you had to have all your credits. Like, I remember one of my classmates had an incomplete in a class, meaning she was almost done with it, but she didn't receive her final score, and they didn't let her walk.
Yeah, the same thing at the Air Force Academy. You didn't get to graduate on time. You had to take a summer school class if you failed a final, and that resulted in you failing the course. So you would take your summer school class, and then you would go and I think report into either the commandant or the superintendent, get your diploma, salute him, and go to your next duty assignment. I mean, I just don't get it. Again, I didn't like it, but he's a great kid. He's going to be a great pilot, and I'm very happy for him to have accomplished all he has. I would just like to be celebrating the actual completion of that.
Not speaking to this young man specifically, but speaking to this generation, it bothers me that it's the continuation of the a trophy for everything kind of generation, and too big to fail. They're not allowed to, fail or suffer the consequences of their actions. It's setting these kids up for a lifetime of bigger failure, and I can't even imagine what it's setting up the corporate industry to have to deal with. I've already heard stories.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard things like people bringing their parents to job interviews. I mean, I've always thought that our universities were honestly where the rubber met the road, or at least they used to be, in terms of, I knew our high schools, maybe we were behind other countries, but usually we caught up at university. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I don't like it at all. It just something that just didn't sit well with me. But like I said, he's going to be a great kid and a great pilot. I look forward to him actually finishing what he's doing. So, all right, we are right at 55 now, and so let's go ahead and go over the rules of the space. Don't talk too long. One that I haven't mentioned in a while: if we bring you up here and give you a mic, don't unmask or open your mic without being called on. Please don't cuss. My mom doesn't like it, and I don't like it either. So those are the rules of the space. And, what else is going on, Dr. A? How's the campaign going?
Campaign is going well, but it's leaving me feeling like I have no idea what I'm doing, which is a really hard thing for a type A personality who wants to stay on top of everything, but I don't know what I'm not on top of. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, I will definitely tell you, I feel like you have to learn to campaign when you're going through your first campaign. You have to learn what to do and not to do. And even now, there are still things that I say that my former campaign manager looks at me and goes, no, you can't say that. So, which, there's a little bit of self-censorship, but, I tend to view that more as just not letting me drive the knife all the way in, just kind of scratching the surface on some things, because I tend to be very, very brutal, but most people, really kind of are, I think, if you cut down to it. So, Nick, you gave us some breaking news, I think, or you gave me some breaking news. Could you tell us, is that true? Did they really release that monster in North Carolina that stabbed that innocent woman on the bus?
According to the report, yes. The judge let out that individual and 3,500 other individuals just like that. I firmly now understand what Jennifer's doing.
Yeah, the Texans for judicial accountability. Yeah, absolutely. I got to be honest with you folks. It's not just what I went through in terms of the justice system. There are far worse examples of how bad our judiciary is. And, I think for my version of America to work, you have to have free and fair elections, and your courts have to be at least doing their very, very best to get to the truth, to defend the innocent, to put the guilty in prison. And I feel like it just isn't true anymore. I feel like they have strayed so far from the mark that we have to do something radical to get them in. And I actually posted online, I believe what's going to start happening is you're going to start seeing vigilante justice. And I'm not encouraging that, because the state is going to come down on you with both feet, if you do that. But if I was her father and that judge released that killer, I completely understand not going only after the killer, but after the judge that released her. It's getting to that point because these people are making decisions that are so odious and outside the norm of human thought that I have to ask the question, why are they even sitting on the bench still? And, when is the last time we've actually impeached a judge? I looked it up, and I think it was a long time ago. I want to say in the 1800s. I could be wrong. If somebody wants to look that up, when the last time we actually impeached a federal judge. Now, the other thing is, I believe it was during the Revolutionary War is the last time a judge was tarred and feathered. Maybe we can symbolically tar and feather them by isolating them from society. In other words, kick them out of the country clubs that they're in. Absolutely, completely shun them. I've often wondered what modern shunning would look like. And I think there's a part of me that wants to see that actually happen for people that do things like this. Never on the basis of speech, though. Go ahead, Dr. A.
Just in answer to your question, I looked it up, and in March 2010, there was a House impeachment with Senate conviction and removal. The most recent federal judge to be impeached was G. Thomas Portuis Jr., the U.S. District Judge for the Eastern District of Louisiana. Only about 15 federal judges have ever been impeached in the history of the U.S., with just 8 of them convicted and removed by the Senate.
That is an incredible bar. And, I do think that judges used to be, and maybe I'm wrong, of better character, and they were actually just better people. But nowadays, I don't think that at all. I think we've got some real clowns. I mean, look at Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she's on SCOTUS. All right, folks, we are at high noon right now. This is The Reckoning for May 2026. May the 4th be with you. Show number 324, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. Now, the question of the day we'll go ahead and start with is, do you believe we're leaving the world better or worse for our children? I honestly think it's worse. I don't see by what objective measure you could honestly say you're leaving a better world unless you're talking about ease of life. But again, I think that's also coming with some things that are going to make the incoming fascist state so detrimental to overall freedom and happiness that I don't think I'm leaving the world a better place for my children. What about you, Southern?
I think it's a little bit of a mixture. They're going to know more than we knew as far as what the government has done. We didn't necessarily know about it until recently. So they're going to have that information, but overall it's worse than it was when we got it.
All right, Dr. A, what about you?
Well, I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. But of course that could happen. I'm trying very hard to leave a world to my children and grandchildren that they can also find joy and peace in. You know, I wasn't born yesterday, and for more than half a decade, I've lived a great life. Yes, there's been some issues of safety and things along the way, but, you know, for the most part, I absolutely can't complain. I've worked hard and had a good life. I want my children to have that opportunity.
You know, I do as well. It's just there's some things that I'm struggling at, and a lot of these are esoteric, but there's also something like I don't feel like our legislature has adequately addressed the water problem. I saw something today that said unless we spend $174 billion in the next, I want to say 10 or 20 years, we may run out of drinking water here in Texas. So again, you know, that could be from a group angling for more money. You never know. But let's go ahead and get to the rant of the day. Now, Real Frisco Politics is a local Facebook group dedicated, obviously, to politics in the city of Frisco. Except it's really not. It's more properly labeled the Real Karens of Frisco Politics, and I'm referring mainly to the two male admins. Now, I'm slightly irritated at them, and only slightly, because they suspended me for using the word retard, which I used in the context of the movie, Never Go Full Retard, you know, if you haven't seen that. Now, so I looked up the clinical terms for people of extremely low IQ. And it's moron, IQ 50 through 70, imbecile, IQ 25 through 50, that's moderate to severe retardation, and an idiot, which is an IQ below 25. Now, there's nothing denoting Democrat, but I'm pretty sure that's below 20. So I could be wrong on that one. But getting back to the rant, bear with me while I get back up there. All right. Now, I'm slightly irritated at them for that, but I'm more offended because they're obvious shills for one side in the political debate that is going on inside of our city while simultaneously banning opposing voices. In my mind, this is weak and cowardly behavior. The remedy for speech you don't like is more speech. The Founding Fathers were very clear on that when they were debating the First Amendment. Now, just as we celebrate Elon Musk's purchase of X for restoring free speech, allegedly, although I feel like most of us think we're shadow banned right now, so too we must find someone to be a liberator inside Facebook. Real Frisco Politics actually even platforms a doctor who I believe is a jihadi, Mahdi the Jihadi. And they've touted the same political drivel that's led us into this current mess in our city. Now, I reject all forms of the war against free speech, period, and I refuse to allow woke politics to overcome the truth. Today, in fact, Real Karens of Frisco Politics talked about the fact that one candidate in our mayoral race now represents unity, and the other candidate represents divisive racial politics. Hey, clown, it's not 2008. Barack Obama is not running, and I'm tired of his labels being applied to modern campaigns. There is nothing unifying about electing a former Frisco School District director that has overseen the division and racial strife which led to the death of a student. There is nothing unifying about silencing those of us that will stand up for what is right and true in society while simultaneously promoting a political system full of misogyny, homophobia, and other forms of tyranny. Now, I'm tired also of those of us that label ourselves as Christians and nationalists being called racist. It is not racist to stand against an ideology that is full of evil. Added to that, I do not believe in this day and age that anyone votes on the basis of skin color. And if you do that, you just aren't smart. You're in one of those categories that I just went through. Now, America needs intelligent people, and intelligent people don't vote on the basis of skin color. All right, the last thing I'll say is this. I want to be cheerful. I really, truly do. I like to have good stories. But today's not one of those days again. I feel like the country is ripping apart at the seams despite the work of those of us who want to stitch it back together. And I'm reminded of a time when I was at the academy and there was a ton of construction going on. And so we had a constant battle between what we called the diggers and the fillers. Now, right now in our country, the diggers are winning, but those of us on the fill side need to keep working and praying for help, and hopefully we'll get it. All right, let's talk about money talks and political correctness kills. Now, Europe is in far greater trouble than most people realize, especially their own citizens. Okay, according to the Institute of Economic Affairs, the UK's GDP per capita is lower than all 50 US states, including Mississippi, which is amazing. And the majority of Britons actually think that they are wealthier than most Americans. Data shows that the UK's average income lags behind the lowest performing US states. Now, far left governments on the other side of the Atlantic have openly sought to sabotage conservative political movements. You know what's crazy is when I was a kid, people thought that Democrats wanted to give money to the common man and Republicans only to the rich. There's only been one president where the common man has benefited as much as Donald Trump has given to us, and that's Ronald Reagan. Both Republicans. All right, so that is a fallacious argument that continues inside the media. Now, I believe that they really are sabotaging conservative political movements to impose authoritarian lawfare and mass censorship in order to prevent losing their grip on power. It's the same thing the Democrats did. They let 20 million illegal invaders into our country. They intend to give them the right to vote so that they will have power. That is the only thing that matters to these fascist political parties that masquerade as being for the people. Now, the globalist leadership in these countries, they sneer at us. You know, they really think that we are, the Trump administration and American nationalist groups, a bad influence on their own citizens. Now, this has been noticeable mainly in their lack of support for our operations against Iran, denying us access to their airspace and making things unnecessarily complicated. Again, they get their oil from that Gulf of Arabia, not us. I don't know why we needed to get involved, but that's a different topic and one we'll come to later. One can theorize the deeper motives behind this decision. I think, honestly, it has a lot to do with the 50 million Muslims that are in Europe. Many of them invaders that came to their country. Now, that might explain the apprehension of the government to do anything that might be seen as hostile to Iran. Now, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz recently said, and let me quote, "The U.S. is being humiliated by Iran. No. And lacks a clear strategy in the conflict. Maybe." He called the situation ill-considered. Now, it's difficult to understand this assertion without knowing how he defines humiliation. But it doesn't really matter because the Trump administration reacted quickly and sharply, saying that it will shut down U.S. bases in Germany soon. Upon hearing this, the clown Merz suddenly changed his tune and praised the U.S. partnership with Germany. The United States is and will remain Germany's most important partner in the North Atlantic Alliance. We share a common goal: Iran must not be allowed to acquire nuclear weapons. If we shared a common goal, you'd help us, but you're not. Now, citizens in Italy, Spain, and Germany are expressing concerns that if we remove their bases, it's going to hurt them dearly, and it will. All right, there are 36,400 active duty U.S. personnel across Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base in Bavaria, and the U.S. military functions as a major economic engine in the rural and smaller urban areas around Germany. They take in $4.1 billion of spending around those bases. Added to that, you've got to think about the second and third order impact on the economy. There are 10,000 direct German jobs, civilian employees at bases. As a matter of fact, one of the funniest times I was flying an approach into Germany, and as a new lieutenant, and is doing what's called a precision approach radar, which means he talks you all the way down, turn left, turn right, go up, go down. And he goes, "You are not pulling up on the stick enough." Anyway, I was like, good grief. So that's an example of the 10,000 direct German jobs and an estimated 70,000 indirect jobs. Think of the bars and the shops and the tourist centers outside bases to go and buy things. All right, it's ridiculous how much money we spend there. The U.S. also invests billions annually in base operations. Ramstein Air Base is an incredible Air Force base over there. It has all the bells and whistles. So, again, what's going to happen if we leave? We're just basically turning it over to them. Now, I did go back to a base I was stationed at that got turned over to the civilians, and it was kind of sad. There was grass growing on the runway, etc. I don't think the Germans will let that happen this time, but you never know. Now, Italy collects around $312 million every year in base-generated revenues in Naples alone, and at least 5,000 direct jobs are created. Spain, $713 million is pumped into their local economies through the U.S. bases, and around 8,000 jobs for Spanish military staff and workers. So, what's the conclusion here? It's time for the Europeans to stand on their own. But again, when I really think about it, the problem is they can't. They have 50 million enemies of Western democracy in their midst. They are incapable of defending their own territory, as they have proven, and they are deluded into thinking they are still powerful. They are weak, incredibly weak. But I do worry about the persecution of our fellow Christians when they inevitably fall into the caliphate. Now, it is a shame, a great shame, that the men like Charles Martel, the Polish king that charged, around Austria, or that saved Austria from falling. It is a shame that those men, the men like Vlad Tepes that stood up against Islam, that they are now falling to it. So I've got to ask, Dr. A, do you think Europe can be saved?
Honestly, I would have said yes, but after listening to some individuals from there that are like expecting somebody else to come and save them rather than the men standing up to save their own country, no.
I'm with you on that. Southern, what about you?
I'm with Dr. A. I've talked to a lot of people from the UK and surrounding areas, and they're expecting somebody else to save them, and I'm just done with them all. Majority of them hate us. Like, I don't know why it's always our responsibility to go save everybody else. How about you save yourselves, and when you get a little bit behind, we'll come help you. I'm just done with it all.
I do get it, but I again, they've basically given away their weapons. They can't defend themselves. I mean, we are seeing their women raped repeatedly. We see their churches burning. By the way, you want to be scared? It's on this continent too. Did you realize that one church a week has burned in Canada for the past 4 years? Yes, you heard that right. Years. Over 200 churches have been burned in Canada. I'll give you 3 guesses as to who's doing it. In the one fire that occurred over the weekend that garnered all the attention on the, I believe it was a cathedral in France that survived both world wars, they're saying it was a grass fire. I don't think so. No. This is not going to happen. How does stone burn like that? Anyway, I don't think Europe can be saved at this point, and I worry about us being saved. And so if we see what's going on over there and we realize that we're just 10 years behind them, why isn't it right for us to stand up against Islam here, now, and deal with it while it's still in its infancy? We need to think about that as a nation. All right. And again, I plan on trying to see what I wrote and what the Denton County adopted as our number one resolution become the state's number one resolution in dealing with legislative priority coming out of the Republican convention, which is coming up in June. And after that, we've got the midterms. So the Democrats are, shall we say, very happy because they believe they're going to rout the Republicans in the approaching midterm elections. Now, this is according to, so again, consider the source, 2 definite left-wing biased hellholes You've got the Washington Compost, as Rush Limbaugh called them, and ABC News. Now, a Washington Post, ABC News, Ipsos poll found that President Trump's disapproval rating is now the highest of either of his 2 terms in office. His decision to launch the war in Iran is clearly taking a toll, which is what I was afraid of. Voters are not only dismayed of his handling of Iran, but that dissatisfaction is shifting into his work on the economy, which is being hurt by the war. I can tell you just yesterday when I filled up at $3.89 a gallon, I was not happy. And because it had gone up 30 cents over the weekend, I was wondering what had specifically happened while I was not paying attention. Now, in a survey of U.S. adults taken last week, 62% said they disapprove of President Trump's performance in the Oval Office. 76% disapprove of his handling of the cost of living, and 68% disapprove of what he's done with Iran. A majority of Americans surveyed expressed disapproval of his handling of every issue covered by the survey. Now, again, that makes me think that the survey is complete garbage. So if they had said the vast majority of Americans approve of his border handling or put some other kudos in there, it might be a little bit more believable. Now, they did say that 85% of Republicans approve of his performance, but those who strongly approve have fallen down to 45%. That's 8% lower since September and is a new Trump low. Perhaps more importantly, his approval rating among Republican-leaning independents is now at 56%. All right, just over 25% of politically independent people approve of his performance. And I got to tell you, folks, those are the people, unfortunately, that decide our elections. All right, until such time as we get hit in the nose again by the Muslims, these tabletop issues are going to dominate, and right now we as a party, the Republican Party, are losing on them. Now, then they went into what I'm going to call descriptors. 71% said that President Trump is not honest or trustworthy. 67% says he does not take the time to carefully consider important decisions, and 59% say he lacks mental sharpness required of his position. Did they forget about the vegetable we had just a few years ago? So I'm going to say quite clearly, I think President Trump is incredibly mentally sharp for an 80-year-old. I do not believe that he makes any decision rashly. He might say something rashly, but I don't think it translates into action because I think he's smart, listens to counsel, and then makes a decision. And I do think he's honest and trustworthy. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a single thing he's told me he's not going to do other than get us in a war in the Middle East that he's done. Now, that's a big one. But even then, I don't think he thought this was going to morph into what it is now. Now, 79% of registered Democrats say they're absolutely certain they're going to vote compared to 72% of Republicans. That's a 7-point improvement on the GOP turnout expectation over a February survey that was similarly conducted. 67% of Americans said the country is moving in the wrong direction. Now, amongst Democrats, 94% felt that way compared to 25% of Republicans. As a general caveat, all right, since more and more Americans identify as independent, party results are growing less meaningful. So what do the independents say? 78% of independents say that the country is heading south. So I'm going to say this, and I said it before, unless something dramatic happens where we see regime change in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz open, I think this was a grave political miscalculation. Now, what you and I don't know is perhaps it was needed based on intelligence. But even if President Trump came out and said the CIA said that they were days away from an atomic bomb and we had to go do something, would we believe them? We have been lied to so many times by the intelligence community that at least I no longer trust them at all. And so I think even with the gerrymandering that is going on, in Texas, the counter gerrymandering that's going on in California and the other states, based off the SCOTUS decision that occurred last week, I think we're in real trouble because I think a lot of Republicans are going to stay at home for this election. Lucky Dog, I'll come to you in just a second. Dr. A, what are your thoughts?
It's hard because, when I'm out door knocking and at different events and talking to people, I definitely hear I don't like Trump perspective. And when I've been drilling down on it more, they just don't like his speech, right? And I'm like, okay, listen, I know you live in California. I know we're the whole, chill, surf, and have fun kind of crowd. But has he done things that, yes, people are frustrated with the fact that we went to war with Iran, but that's really the only thing that they can honestly point at. Even the Democrats are happy with the way things are moving financially. So when I get them talking, they just don't like his mouth. But he's got a mouth from New York. And I told them, he's not you. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I don't know, Larry. People here are excited about going out for midterms, so I can't relate to that result.
I think a lot of Republicans in Texas are disgusted at some of the choices that we have because we feel like there's no difference in either of the two candidates. I mean, in my district, I've got a Democrat that poses as a Republican that poses as a Republican and a real Democrat. So, I get it. All right, Southern, your thoughts, ma'am, and then we'll go to you, Lucky Dog, and then Misty.
Pretty much what I've been hearing is why should I keep electing the same people that go to Congress and do absolutely nothing? That's all we're seeing from our side is that they go there, we put them in their position to go and vote for us, and then they go there and do absolutely nothing but party. And we're pretty much done with them all.
Oh, you left out sexually harass people, then make us pay for it. So.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about the slush fund that we're not allowed to see, but we're allowed to pay. We have to pay for it, but we can't see it any of it.
Just think about any business in America that says, hey, the C-suite, they can sexually harass whoever they want, and all the employees are going to have to pay for it. I mean, how that is not ruled illegal, unconstitutional, and how it is not made public and laid bare, and how they even thought that was going to be okay is amazing. I mean, right now, I believe it's protecting John Cornyn and his payment that went to a male staffer. Yeah, you heard me. One of our senatorial candidates for the runoff on May 26th may have paid a sexual harassment claim to a male staffer. Nice. And that's a senator from Texas. All right, Lucky Dog, go ahead, sir.
I appreciate it. I guess one thing I wanted to add to this is that the Iranians are adversaries. They know our election cycles. And frankly, my fear, to be honest with you, is that they're going to drag this thing out to around September, October, and then pull something that's essentially going to look bad on the Republicans. I mean, frankly, I know you've studied like the Tet Offensive back in the Vietnam War. Militarily, we kicked the living snot out of the VC and practically broke them. But on the flip side, politically, that was a big driver in getting us out of the war because everybody looked at it and says, oh, my God, they pulled this off. What's next? And my fear is that the Iranians, especially since they've got jihadists, dedicated suicide bombers working for them, that they're waiting this thing out until an opportune time to essentially give us a bloody nose. I mean, they may end up getting the snot kicked out of them, but it might be enough to essentially give us a Democrat Congress and then we're done. I mean, I pray to God I'm misanalyzing this, but I don't think so. Okay, I'll land there.
Yeah, I don't really think you are either. Nick, didn't you tell me that the U.S. Embassy in London just had an announcement of some type?
Yes, sir. They just published a new threat assessment saying that they're elevating it and they're expecting some kind of attack in London.
Now, was that like imminent attack or over the next couple of months?
It was published May 1st. It was something that's going to happen this month, according to them.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Misty.
I was
thinking about the 9% in that one town that only voted 91%, and Texas didn't.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
For the school board, and the whole school board flipped. And so, we really need to make sure people are getting out and voting. Something to help people understand Trump, ask him just to go to the White House and look at the live streaming that he does when he speaks. That's what got me flipped. Just starting to listen to what he said and then say, you know what? Then watch an event or two. Watch 2 or 3 of his live streams. Then go and watch or turn on CNN or NBC or whatever it is and listen to how they retell what he just said. And it's never anywhere close to what he actually said. And so that might help people change their minds. Also, I heard that the Michael Jackson movie is the #1 movie, and people are starting to wake up because of that. So, you just never know what's going to trigger people to start to wake up. I'll take any assistance that we can. And, we just have to try. I've been writing.
Misty, you're on like third topic here. Can you land, please?
Oh, okay. I apologize.
Yeah. No, that's all right. Thank you for your comments. There was one city, it was Carrollton, the run for mayor, and it was a strange vote. Anytime you see 91%, you've got to ask what's going on there. And that's because the opponent actually had a conviction, I think, for voter fraud that was running against the mayor. So I'm with you. And as far as flipping school boards, that's something that really bothers me about the local election is I don't feel like we put real conservatives on the school board. I would like to say that we did, but we didn't in this election. And we didn't also, we put back in office 2 people on the Frisco City Council that have let it get into this current situation, one of whom was seen wearing a hijab, one of whom was pandering for votes at a mosque on Saturday, on election day. And so as much as I want to vote for mayor, and I'm going to vote for my guy for mayor, Rod Vilhauer, he can't do anything if the city council, he only votes if the city council's tied. And so we just let 2 people back in that are basically responsible for running this. All right, so I got to tell you, when I started this space, I became familiar with the term black pill. And I thought a lot of things were garbage that honestly have come true. But to be fair to other people, they think when I say that the 2020 election was stolen, that maybe I'm being Mr. Black Pill. So let's talk about a black pill that unfortunately is true, and I'm not so certain isn't continuing in some way. Apparently, MK Ultra is going to be discussed. And so the topic is MK Ultra is going to a safe space, i.e. Congress. So a congressional hearing is scheduled for May the 13th, which will thrust the CIA's decades-old experiments back into the spotlight, raising fresh questions about government secrecy, ethical boundaries, and the protection of individual liberties against unchecked power. So a quick synopsis. Project MK Ultra ran from 1953 to 1964 under the CIA's Office of Technical Services. It encompassed 144 sub-projects exploring drugs, hypnosis, isolation, sensory deprivation, and psychological techniques designed to manipulate human behavior for interrogation and other purposes. Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett recently said, I just go back to the whole concept of MK Ultra. They kidnapped people and loaded them up with acid or other mind-altering drugs. They tried to erase their memories. They were sued in court. They claimed it didn't exist. And then in 1975, they ordered the records destroyed and later admitted it existed but no longer did. Which lies are we supposed to believe? So what we're saying is the CIA could have figured out how to drug people and make them violent, like the lady and her two parents that assaulted the reporter, or make them violent and say attempt assassinations like Thomas Crooks. Is that why we had to cremate his body and wash the blood off the roof so we couldn't see what drugs were inside him? Just saying. Things that I want to know. Now, Representative Anna Paulina Luna announced that the task force on the declassification of federal secrets will examine the Cold War era program. The move comes amid recently serviced documents and persistent claims surrounding the death of a key scientist involved in the work. So they killed the guy responsible. Okay, got it. So the question I have for these hearings is, are they part of the plan to give us the illusion that we're still in control? I mean, as Southern said earlier, and I'll get you back up, Southern, I didn't see that you dropped. You know, we don't... All right, Congress doesn't do anything except generate sound bites. 1 second. All right, I'm certain we will not get the truth, as Congress, honestly, is where investigations go to die. All right, there is nothing as useless as Congress, all right, in the American government as our Congress. The Republicans won't enact DOJ cuts. They won't pass the SAVE Act. They got us into another war, and the only thing that's saving them is the sheer incompetence of the Democratic Party, which straight out serves Satan, advocates genocide, wants to raise taxes, and deny fundamental truths of biology, such as there are two sexes. How do we get here? Now, I'm honestly confused at this, all right, but I think we can point the finger back at education. All right, and on that note, my good friend and co-host Southern has been doing a lot of research on the state of the education system in Texas. So, you know, we talked briefly before, and you told me that Texas was just a shining example and pillar of what education should be, correct?
That is definitely not what I said.
So,
sorry.
What's going on?
Apparently,
go ahead.
Apparently, you guys have tons of issues. The latest one came out of Frisco ISD again. And what had happened was the assistant principal, whose name I will reveal because it's already been revealed, was Kristen Williams. She has since been moved to another school. She basically set up a student named Kian for we'll call it a quote unquote crime that he never actually did. So what they had done is the guys were making a list and girls were adding names to lists. That he never posted it to any social media. He was accused of posting to social media. And in the meantime, she went in and edited a document and then said he's the one that edited the document, even though her fingerprints were all over it. As far as when they looked at it, she was the one that edited it. He had nothing to do with it. And they even went as far as to releasing a statement to the parents saying that he had access to first and last names. Well, that was, of course, never corrected. They never issued a statement to the parents saying that this never happened, that he had nothing to do with this. But in the meantime, he's been ostracized by the parents and students. And it's absolutely ridiculous what she was allowed to get away with. She's still an assistant principal just at another school now. And this student, you know, he can say he's not guilty all day long, but because the school never issued a retraction, the parents still look at him as guilty.
It's amazing to me that, you know, they could do that to somebody that was a child. I mean, fortunately, the DA did not bring charges. But, you know, why I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was stuck in prison, and I think he has type 1 diabetes without his medications for 40 hours, correct?
Correct. For 40 hours, he was stuck there. He didn't have his medication. The school didn't send it with him. And if anybody knows anything about type 1 diabetes, that's extremely dangerous to ever do to a child. Well, anybody, but this was a child that they did it to. And it's disgusting that they were able to get away with it.
All right, and again, you know, there's also, I believe, an entire school had its supervision staff. I believe it was in the school district of Forney, like the principal, assistant principal, et cetera, fired I mean, there are a ton of things that are going on inside Texas schools. Now, just to let you know right now, one thing that is happening is parents are voting with their feet. Overall, 25-26 data indicates that there has been a 1.4% decline in students below the 5.5 million student rate, which is the first year-over-year drop since the pandemic and the second highest drop, I believe, since it's measured. So you're seeing parents vote with their feet, and I've got to ask, why on earth would I send my kids to schools that are not teaching facts but are indoctrinating my children and why would I put my children at risk to sexual predators, which apparently Texas is not doing a good enough job at in getting rid of those types. So I will say this, the man that just recently took that job, I know he's on it and he will do something about it. And have I got you in touch with the man inside the Texas Education Agency that runs that department, Levi Fuller?
No, sir, but I'd be happy to talk to him.
I would be more than happy to give you his number. Let me just verify that we can do that through him. All right. I'm going to tell you right now that my town, Frisco, is going to be in the news more and more. We've got a trial coming up for Carmelo Anthony. He is the man that stabbed, allegedly, a student, Austin Metcalf. And so, you know, the video is pretty clear. The eyewitness testimony, I think, is there. So we'll see what the judge does. Now, I got to tell you, the judge that he drew is a judge named Roach, R-O-A-C-H. And I had the misfortune of having my divorce actually heard before Judge Roach. The man is a hanging judge. He brooks no shenanigans in his courtroom. So I am hopeful that the circus that I believe the Carmelo Anthony people will try and bring in will be shut down unbelievably quick. So that at least is good news. All right. Doxing the left is the next topic we're going to get at. But I do want to go back to something that was said just before. Kyle Smiley wrote in and he said, if this was a mosque a week that was burning, you wouldn't be able to get Western mainstream media to shut up about it. You're absolutely right, sir. All right, and apparently yesterday, a young girl that was stabbed by a Muslim invader is now dead. That apparently happened in Spain. All right, and then we've got Isaiah Page, 18, has been sentenced to 190 years in prison. He was found guilty of executing Bryce Gerlach at the Harvest Homecoming Festival in Albany, Indiana. How is that relevant to this? Sorry. Okay, he's already moved on. All right, no, not a problem. All right, so let's talk about the left. The left is losing their stuff right now because apparently nearly 18,000 left-wing activists were doxxed, and they've been whining about it on Blue Sky. What happened is an anti-ICE activist website launched by a former Trump official exposed their personal details due to a vulnerable connection. The website, GTFO ICE, was created by former DHS Chief of Staff and Google security executive Miles Taylor as a rapid response network that allows people to sign up for alerts about proposed ICE facilities in their areas. What they're trying to say is that we're busy building concentration camps for the detainees, which we know is not true. All right, the breach in his data exposed sign-up records and has been forwarded to federal investigators, according to Data Republican. One of the phone numbers used during the sign-up for this site received a text message claiming that the GTFOICE.org had been forwarded to the FBI, HSI, and ICE. The message also included inflammatory claims about the individuals behind the project. All right. Now, Taylor, the guy that did this, all right, what's his full name again? His full name is Miles Taylor. Miles Taylor's security clearance was suspended in April 2025 for treasonous conduct after he stoked dissension by manufacturing reports on the existence of a supposed resistance inside the federal government. I believe he wrote an op-ed for the New York Times. Now it appears he may have intentionally honeypotted his left-wing comrades, many of whom plotted revolution on Blue Sky. Now, thousands signed up. As a matter of fact, 17,662 users were exposed through a public REST API, don't know what that is, with no real authentication or rate limiting, leaving full records accessible, including timestamps, according to Doge-aligned investigative journalist Data Republican. Anything she says, I believe, because she's just, I would not want her after me if I was a bad guy. So this guy, all right, Miles, he ran the third largest federal department, had 250,000 employees, a $60 billion budget. He oversaw election security architecture. Feel good about your elections now. And led counterterrorism operations. Then he served as Google's head of national security policy, and he can't build a secure sign-up form. Probably one of those DEI grads, but I don't know that for sure. But he does milk hundreds of thousands of NGO dollars on his credentials while freeloading off of his fame as the person, he did write the New York Times article, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. So who's he getting his money from? If you had to guess, who would it be? Anybody want to bank on Arabella investors? Of course. Ding, 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 you win. And the 1630 dark money. Now, apparently, 75K has come to someone named Schultz, one for democracy, defeat by tweet, another one 250K, and 300K went to the Lincoln Project. I hate pretend Republicans. You know, Christ spitting out the lukewarm, that is what I can't stand, lukewarm Republicans. So to sum up, the same people who want to dox ICE agents that pass laws to make them expose themselves and remove their masks, thanks to their sloppy website work, have now been doxed. All right. They should have known better. All right. And I'd like to say that this was all a plan, but I don't think so. I think he accidentally did expose his comrades. I'm only going to say this as a last comment on this. Every communication, absolutely every communication has, you need to assume it's monitored by the National Security Agency, the FBI. And when you think of them, I want you to think of them this way. All right. And let me pause this for just a second. When I was a young, stupid lieutenant, I was sitting in class, and we were talking about enemy aircraft systems. And it was a Vietnam-era guy that was teaching enemy anti-aircraft systems. And I was like, they don't ever hit anything anyway. They're not any good. And he looked at me with all the seriousness and gravity that a man who has been shot at could muster. And he said, you are thinking absolutely incorrectly. You need to think of this guy on the other end of that gun as his sole reason for existence is to kill you. He could not go to pilot training, so he became, an enemy weapon systems, manager to kill you. That's what he wants to do. And all of his professional career has been spent doing that. And if you do that, you will stay alive. So you need to think of this FBI guy or girl that is monitoring your communications as highly intelligent, but absolutely corroded, a Berkeley grad or a Wellesley grad. Somebody that hates you and hates Trump and wants to see you and your family destroyed. So when you type something in this alleged free country, know that you're not free. And they are looking for anything, any reason to put you in jail. How do I know? Because it happened to me. So again, you got to be smart. And these people were not smart. So when we lose the midterms, and if we lose the presidency, your digital communications and your digital footprint is going to be you're going to have to be even more careful. And I'm not worried about it now because I already know they're going to execute me if they win the presidency again. That's just the way it's going to happen. So again, but you've got to be smart. And I want you to all think of those people as their sole reason is to put you, Southern, or you, Dr. A, in jail. So, right now, imagine we had a group called the Sedition Hunters that were hunting for every J6er to dox them. Imagine if we had something like that going after you. And again, that's why, guard your privacy, be smart about what you're doing, and think of those people in the way that I just described. Now, Our politicians are proving again and again that they're inconsequential, that they don't do the things that we tell them to do, and which is why I ran and didn't. I was not successful, which is why Dr. A is running, is because she wants to actually do something and make something better. But again, they fail again and again. And so right now in sanctuary cities, we're seeing, I believe, an increase in violence. Dr. A, can you tell us about this, please?
Absolutely. I titled this section Sanctuary Violence. Sanctuary cities, unlike their name implies, welcome crime and violence. And this weekend did not disappoint. There were two major events in LA. There was a triple shooting at Florence and Firestone. It was a triple shooting that occurred around 1:57 a.m. at the 1600 block of Firestone Boulevard in unincorporated Florence, Firestone, which is South LA, near a strip mall. Two victims were shot while standing in the strip mall parking lot. The security guard working nearby on the street was struck by a stray bullet and was not the intended target. A 35-year-old man was pronounced dead at the scene. A 25-year-old man was transported to the hospital in stable condition with a gunshot wound, and a 27-year-old man was hospitalized in critical condition, gunshot wound. It appears that's the security guard. No suspects identified or descriptions released publicly. No vehicle description available. Motive remains under investigation. Described as an assault with deadly weapon call appears to have been a shootout. LASD Homicide Bureau is handling the case. Then, secondly, the same night, about an hour and a half later, what started as a routine traffic stop near 104th Street and Hawthorne Boulevard, 3 a.m. Sunday, suspect allegedly struck a deputy with a gray Ford pickup truck and fled. The deputy had minor injuries. The same suspect was spotted in Beverly Hills about 10 hours later at 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. There was a short pursuit, a crash, and then hours-long barricade and hostage situation in the truck with a female rideshare passenger. The suspect was taken into custody around 12:20 a.m. that night after a 9 to 10 hour standoff. He was transported to a hospital first, likely for evaluation or injuries from a less lethal tactic like canine and rounds used to resolve it. Then booked. No name has been released publicly yet. Authorities have not identified him in available reports. The hostage, this female rideshare passenger, was released unharmed around 11 p.m. So from 1:30 to 11, she was being held hostage. And a quick update on a previous LA violence incident. On Thursday, April 16th, in Lake Forest, California, which is Orange County, an 81-year-old Ed Ashman, a retired U.S. Marine Corps captain, Vietnam veteran, and substitute teacher at El Toro High School, was walking home from school near the intersection of Toledo Way and Ridge Route Drive. A 14-year-old boy, the son of Tommy Joe Meyer, was allegedly riding a high-powered illegal off-road e-motorcycle, a Suron Electra B capable of 58 miles per hour, was unregistered and not street legal, while he was doing wheelies in the roadway. The teen lost control and struck Ashman. He then fled the scene, leaving Ashman critically injured on the side of the road. Ashman was hospitalized in critical condition, and he died from his injuries on Thursday, April 30th, about 2 weeks after being hit. The teen was arrested the next day after the incident on April 17th and booked into Orange County Juvenile Hall. Charges against him include reckless driving, causing great bodily injury, leaving the scene of an accident, providing false information to a peace officer, and related offenses. As a juvenile, his case is handled confidentially in juvenile court. No public updates on release status, further hearings, or final disposition have been released, but he remains in the system following the fatal incident. The boy's mother, Tommy Jo Meyer, 50, of Aliso Viejo, was arrested shortly after the crash. Initial charges, which were filed before Ashman's death, were felony child endangerment, accessory after the fact, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, providing false information to a peace officer, and related misdemeanors or infractions. Prosecutors say she had been warned multiple times by deputies since 2025 about the illegal bike, admitting buying it for her son, and knew he rode it recklessly on public streets. After Ashman's death on May 1st, the Orange County District Attorney upgraded the charges to include felony involuntary manslaughter plus the original count. She now faces up to about 7 to 8 years in prison if convicted on all counts. She is scheduled for arraignment on May 21st in Newport Beach. This is a very recent development. The charges amended just days ago, so the case is in early pre-trial stages. And then back to the whole, the violence going this past weekend. Chicago also reported multiple shootings across the weekend with at least 2 killed and 6 injured. Triple shooting on Saturday night, May 2nd, about 11:49 p.m., back of the Yards neighborhood. 3 male victims, ages 16, 18, and 20, were shot while standing outside. The 20-year-old was critically injured with a chest wound. The others had non-life-threatening injuries. Other incidents included a fatal shooting of one man and injury to another while they sat in a car in the Bronzeville area on Chicago's south side near Interstate 9094 early Saturday morning. The victims were inside a blue hatchback car. The 2 men were sitting or traveling in the parked or slowly moving vehicle when someone opened fire on them. No other victims were reported. There was a 58-year-old man, the driver. He was shot in the neck. He was transported to the University of Chicago Medical Center where he was pronounced dead. A 26-year-old man, the passenger, suffered a grazed wound to the back of the head, treated at the same hospital in good or fair condition currently. It was a rough weekend, guys, but, we understand that sanctuary cities are nothing of the kind.
No, they're definitely not. So I want to talk about a phrase that has always bothered me.
Sorry, Larry, did I leave you speechless?
Yes, you did. Mainly that, or either I was too stupid to turn the mic switch back on before I started talking. Probably the latter of the two. All right. A phrase that has always bothered me is the phrase juvenile delinquent. And again, I'm quoting Starship Troopers here, but it's exactly the way I think. You cannot, by definition, be a juvenile delinquent because delinquent implies that you're understanding a set of terms and rules. All right, so you have to have adult rules. So actually, upholding those rules is an adult character trait. So I think it's very right to charge the parent because the parents are the ones that are delinquent in their failure to perform duties there. So, I've never really liked juvenile delinquent. I know why we get it, and I realize that I'm perhaps twisting the meaning slightly, but it is the age of the child that it's not. It is definitely the parent's authority to take that motorcycle from that child. And so, again, it was the parent that was delinquent, not the child, if that makes any sense at all. So, all right. I was
just happy to see in this case that is how they're treating it.
And again, I think that's the right case. There's a couple of things that have gone on while we've been there. Apparently, Nancy Mace has got a hold of allegedly just 9. There's 1,000 pages, and she says that there's 9 people that are in Congress's sexual harassment slush fund, and she says she's going to release it all. My question is, why wait? What are we? Is this a state secret here?
Shock and awe, drama.
Nah, I get it. Clicks, blah blah blah. But again, and do you really believe? Okay, so I'm pretty sure John Cornyn's won. Okay, I'm fairly certain that Eric Swalwell might have been another. I mean, I could be wrong.
Least one.
I've heard Adam Schiff. I mean, are we really thinking there's only been 9 since 2004?
Just so you know, Swalwell named those 2 in his recent attempt to, somehow reduce the anger at him.
He named. Didn't he say, or No. It was the former George Santos that said, like, he had a whole list of congressmen that he said had done something.
Oh, yeah.
Like Nancy, didn't he accuse Nancy Mace of having an affair with her female staffer or chief of staff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did.
Now, has George Santos ever been in your space, Southern?
No, I've been in spaces with him before.
Yeah, I have as well. But again, you know, the mere fact that this thing actually exists and that we have to pay our taxes go to it is just gross. All right. We are a little early, but we started a little early as well. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up after we go to the quote. Southern, is there anything else you want to talk about? And when, again, please remind me when the Carmelo Anthony trial is supposed to start. Is it July or June?
It is going to start June 1st. Of course, in Allen County.
So obviously, you know, I know you're going to be following that and watching that very closely. So we're going to want to have some updates. And if I had to guess, I think that's probably going to be about a month-long trial there. I don't know. And
I don't think it's going to take that long.
It shouldn't, but you know, you never know with all the procedural delays, et cetera. And again, that's going to try and rip my city apart. So I find it very interesting that I get out of jail and I move to Frisco. I mean, good grief. All right, Dr. A, what about you? What is your next campaign event?
Boy, this week is super busy. I have an interview with the media tomorrow, and then Wednesday night there's a political dinner that I'm speaking at, and then Thursday I have a meet and greet at a house that is being hosted for me in Walnut Creek. So it's going to be a busy week. I'm excited.
All right. Well, the best of luck to you as you continue on down the campaign trail. Do you have all your signs out?
Not all of them are out yet. I still have a few big ones and a few yard signs. We're putting about 30 out this week. I will be out probably by the weekend.
Awesome. All right. Dr. A, I believe you have the quote for the day. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
Sure. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That was from Theodore Roosevelt.
Great man, Congressional Medal of Honor winner. And if you haven't read the book Theodore Rex about him, I strongly, strongly recommend it. All right, everybody, that is it for the day. Get in the arena, as Theodore Rex told us to do, as Dr. A is right now, and we all wish you the very best of luck. All right, Nick, let's go ahead and wrap. Everyone have a great week. God bless each and every one of you.